My previous life, I was a news reporter, news director at a station in New Bedford, one of our affiliates, WBSM. Very proud of the station, proud of its heritage, and proud of my work there. And it was a strange thing during my 11, 12 years there. I noticed this pattern where if there was ever a national story, there was more often than not a connection to New Bedford, especially with a more localized national story like the Boston Marathon bombing. Johar Tsarnaev was known to frequent the area, attended UMass Dartmouth. He ate at the same diner I used to eat at, and there were a lot of connections. This happens in many, many news stories that go national, and sometimes we're the subject of national news stories. For instance, the highway serial killer in New Bedford along 195, 140 area was a harrowing experience for many people and the victims, of course, during the 80s and into the 90s. Our next guest has written about that and has also written a new true crime book about the hunt for a cop killer in Saxonburg, Pennsylvania. And I will say I do have a connection to this story. It's one of the stories I covered during my time at WBSM and was also a point of pride there as well. Please welcome Maureen Boyle. Maureen, it's so nice to have you on. I was able to get into the book over the weekend, got about halfway through with the time that I was able to carve out. I can't wait to get home tonight and finish reading it. It's an incredible story, and there's so much more that I did not know about Donald Webb and the killing of Police Chief Greg Adams in Saxonburg in 1980. Of course, we come into the story when this basically came to a head and it was put to bed. Donald Eugene Webb was found in a backyard in a Dartmouth home. Is that where we should pick up this story?
Wherever you would like to pick it up.
Well, that's where I came into it. Sure.
Having me on the show. Yes, that's when you picked it up. If I recall correctly, you were one of the first reporters at the scene when police converged on the home of Donald Webb's wife, and you were stuck in the rain outside.
Yeah. I was the first one there. This was a story we had some leads on several months prior when the I believe the FBI and the state police showed up to raid the house, and they found, this is where the story got really curious for a lot of the local media. Donald Webb was suspected of killing Police Chief Greg Adams. I mean, they had pretty hard evidence that this was the guy, and he had been on the lam for more than 30 years. And they went into his home. What did they find in his home the months prior to actually finding his body?
During the first search, it was an FBI search, and they went in there looking for photos to see if there was any newer photos of Donald Webb. And because the search warrant was for photos, they could look in a variety of places because you can put photos any place. And they came across a secret room in a basement closet. And in that closet was a cane that they believed was Donald Webb's. However, they couldn't take that cane because the search warrant was only for photos.
Oh, wow.
So they had to leave that behind. And they were unable to get a second search warrant, federal search warrant to get back in, and that's when the state police, Massachusetts State Police assigned to the Attorney General's office, stepped in, and they got a second search warrant to obtain the door of this closet and the cane.
It was a wild thing when all that came to light. That's what they found when they initially went in.
Yeah. Yes, it was crazy because people were thinking, "Oh my God, he's been hiding here all along." And he wasn't. I mean, what I detail in the book is the search for him, and how the police had wiretaps. They followed his wife throughout the area, kept a really close watch on the house. she did act a little bit suspiciously in their view in terms of how she was able to detect all of the police tails and would take what they called evasive maneuvers in the case, just to throw them off track. So she was definitely true and blue to him. She refused to say where he was. Her stock answer to law enforcement all those years was, I don't know. I don't know where he is. I don't know where he is. And it turned out she was, of course, lying to them.
Now, of course, when this took place originally in 1980, the killing of Police Chief Greg Adams, that was a big story in Saxonburg, a town, I believe you quoted in the book, less than 2,000 people in the towns. Everybody was pulling a double duty in some form or fashion. Everybody knew one another. But it never really got to be a big story here in Massachusetts. Even after Donald Eugene Webb was placed on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list, a list that included Whitey Bulger, of all people, this never really got the attention that it warranted. Why?
No, I agree. I was absolutely shocked. I mean, I came to southeastern Massachusetts in 1984. Came to the Standard Times. Now, this is just 4 years after the chief was murdered in Pennsylvania, and it was believed Donald Webb came up to Massachusetts. And I knew nothing about the case. People weren't talking about it. They were talking about Donald Webb's stepson, who had been a New Bedford cop.
Stanley Webb.
And there was Stanley, Donald's stepson. And and there was some controversy involving him on the department, and he eventually left the police department. And people would talk about Stanley, but they would not talk. It was like, oh yeah, his stepfather killed a cop in Pennsylvania, but even in the newsroom, no one was saying, oh yeah, and they never caught him. So I was always under the impression that this guy was in prison. There was never any law enforcement that were talking to me about it when I was covering cops. No one suggesting, hey, why don't you do a story about Donald Webb? It was as if it didn't happen in Massachusetts. And that was the focus of the search by the FBI, Pennsylvania State Police, and Massachusetts State Police for well over a year. Mm-hmm. And there was nothing in the media, very, very, very little in the media. When I went through the archives at the library, the microfiche of the local papers, and I was shocked to see such little attention to it. I mean, today that would have been on the front page. It would have been headlines everywhere, but it was nothing. And when you compare it to the headlines in Pennsylvania, it's just such a major contrast. And it makes you wonder if there had been more attention up here, if he would have gotten caught quicker.
Right. Now, we're talking, of course, about a time during the 80s where people like Whitey Bulger, they had, Massachusetts State Police on the payroll.
Yes.
And they had, they got tip-offs. Was Mr. Webb, was he involved in any of that?
Well, he was what you could consider a low-level mobster. He wasn't on the scale of Whitey Bulger. He was on the Most Wanted because he killed a cop. And he was, a hoodlum is the best way to describe him. He hung around with a group of guys primarily from Fall River. They called themselves law enforcement called them the Fall River Gang, which is, very, very creative, of course. And these guys would go up and down the East Coast doing burglaries and robberies and things like that. Break into jewelry stores, rob the homes of Chinese restaurant owners that they believed had cash in their houses. But they wouldn't do it in their backyard. They did their jobs in New York.
You don't bleep where you eat, is the old saying.
You got it. And that's what they did. They did it in Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, all over, but they didn't do their big jobs up here.
So, of course, the book takes us through what happened in the years since the killing. I mean, they never found this guy, which is incredible. Were there people around here who knew that he was still here, still hiding out?
They were getting reports that his wife and certain people knew where he was, where Donald Webb was, and that they were hiding him. And, of course, those individuals would not talk. There was a lot of rumors of where he might be, but none of it panned out.
Until, right?
Until it was finally found. And even then, even towards the end of the investigation, there were people who were still giving them false stories. Well, not false stories, the rumors that they had heard that he was dead.
Right. The name of the book is The Ghost, The Hunt for the Murder of Police Chief Greg Adams, by Maureen Boyle. You can find it on Barnes & Noble, Amazon. It's a great read so far. Again, I'm not lying to you when I say I can't wait to get home tonight and continue reading it, especially the part about me. But
well, you were wonderful. I have to say you were absolutely wonderful in covering it. That you were a lifeline to a number of people in Pennsylvania, and particularly the chief's widow. She was watching the dig for the body on the live stream that you were doing. So that way she felt as if she was there. And a number of people in Saxonburg were doing the same.
See, I was going to say today, in hindsight, I would not have gone live from the scene because I was the only one there, and I was the only one who knew that was going on. And the only thing that tipped everybody off was the fact that I went live that day. And but you saying that really puts a different light on it. Thank you so much, Maureen. We hope to have you back on soon to talk more about any upcoming projects. Very quickly, do you have any appearances coming up?
I am going to Saxonburg in a week or so, and in the fall I am going to be in Middleborough, the Middleborough Public Library. I'm going to be in Nantucket. I'm going to be in Dartmouth. Great.
Thank you so much, Maureen. Again, the book is The Ghost, The Murder of Police Chief Greg Adams and the Hunt for His Killer. Thank you so much. 844-500-4242. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Howie Carr Show.
You're tuned into The Howie Carr Radio Network.